What's going on, guys? So today, it's gonna be a little bit of a story time kind of day because I'm literally sitting at my house and no one else is here, and I made the mistake of not going fishing this weekend, so now I'm bored. But that all being said, which has been a while since I've really uploaded to my fishing channel in any kind of relevant consistency, and here lately I've been trying to do that. I was actually going to film another video last week for you guys and upload that, but me being the dummy that I am, I you know, forgot to put my memory card back into my GoPro after I took the memory card out to put on the computer. So yeah, no video, and we actually caught some fish. Sorry about that. I'm an idiot. What can I say? If you don't think I'm an idiot by that, then let me just prove that I'm an idiot by what I did, what happened to me a few months ago. So I bought a new boat. It is a Epic E2 22-foot bay boat. It's a 2019, so spent some, you know what I'm saying? Well, the bank spent some, and I'm just kind of paying them back because Lord knows I don't have the kind of money to just go buy a boat like that, without financing. But anyway, I buy this boat and super excited. I think I bought it the end of the summer of 2021, I believe. So I haven't had it very long. It was the second summer I've had it. And from the day that I bought the boat, I've been really wanting and needing to get a trolling motor put on it, which I have one now, but it's a little too late. But anyways, the reason I wanted a trolling motor was because I realized that every time I went out into the bay down here on the coast of Mississippi, that the fluke anchor just it wouldn't hold the boat good, because in the bay it's just a really muddy, silty bottom, and I guess those fluke anchors just really aren't designed for that. And I like it out there in the sand, which is really what they're designed for. It doesn't move, especially the one I have now. It's really too big for the boat, to be honest with you, but I'd bought an oversized one because I was hoping that with an oversized anchor I wouldn't have so much problem with the anchor pulling. Well, the reason I tell you that is just to kind of reinforce how much of an idiot I am. So, we'll keep moving along with the story. Buddy of mine, we went to Eagle Lake in North Mississippi. It's just on the Mississippi-Louisiana line. And it's a well-known lake for, good fish and good bass and all that good stuff. So we go down there and get there, no problems, everything's great. Went to bed that night. Got up Saturday morning. We were gonna have some bad weather. It was super windy, but we were gonna try to make the best out of it. And we get down there to the lake, and I mean, like I said, it was really, really windy. So the lake was pretty choppy, pretty wavy, honestly. I didn't think much about it, though, honestly. Well, because what am I worried about? It's not a big deal. It'll be fine. So we put the boat in the water, and the first thing that happens that should have thrown a red flag was I go to back the boat off in the water. I go to crank my motor, go to turn it over, and it just won't do nothing, won't crank. So I'm like, oh great. I was like, there's, kind of preface this story. Before this all happens, we get out on the water one day. I get my boat out there when my battery ends up dying on me. The only battery I have hooked to the boat. So I end up spending like $300 to get a Boat Tow USA guy out there, basically just to jump me off so I can get back to the boat ramp. So because of what happened then, which was weeks before this, we put a brand new battery in the boat. So when it does this, I'm like, it can't be the battery, because this battery's brand new and I've only ran it one time since, and I have a kill switch on the battery. So every time I put my boat up and I'm not using it, I turn the kill switch off, so there's no possible way that the main battery can be drained. So I'm like, what is going on here? So I come like, maybe it's just a bad connection. So I pop open my lid, I mess with the connection some, I retighten it down, and go to crank it, cranks right up, fires right off, no problems. I'm like, okay, no problem. But see, that should have been my first indication that this day was not going to go how I wanted it to go. So get the boat cranked, pull it off, put the truck up, all that good stuff. Start riding around looking for a place to fish. Found one spot because we had some live bait, and we were actually going to try and have some live bait, we had some different stuff. We're going to do some bass fishing and catfish. So we were like, you know what, we'll catfish first. We'll just anchor right here. We'll drop the line in because the Simrad was lit up. There was a lot of fish under us. So that's what we do. Drop the anchor, and I don't cut off my motor because I had so much trouble with that anchor grabbing in the bay that I learned there was no point to cut my motor off until I knew that the anchor grabbed. So that's what I did. I waited, anchor grabbed, cut my motor off. Well, we're sitting there fishing, and I mean, it's probably not even like, dude, it's not 5 minutes later, and the anchor pulls. Well, like, okay. So the first thing I try to do is go back there and crank the motor. And guess what? Go to crank it, nothing happens. Literally, my radio's playing, everything's running like it's supposed to, but as soon as I turn the key over, everything dies out and kills out. So I'm like, this isn't good. So I tell my buddy, hey, start trying to reconnect those battery cables. I'm going to try to reset the anchor. And man, this anchor, when I tell you it's almost too big for the boat, there is a slot that the boat has in it that is designed for the anchor to sit into. And I actually had the way it sits into it is I don't know what you want to call them. Maybe the prongs off the anchor, off each end. You know what I'm saying? Like the little prongs. I don't know. I'll put something up so y'all can see it. Because I'm an idiot and I don't know what they're called. But the pointy bits that come off, the little round pointy bits that come off the ends of the anchor, of a fluke anchor, there's cutouts in this compartment for that anchor to literally sit in. Well, I had to trim those down. I actually had to cut them, shorten them some, so it would fit in there properly. Like I said, I wanted a big anchor because I got tired of the anchor pulling when I was in muddy bottoms and stuff like that. Well, I try to reset the anchor. Never works. Couldn't get it to reset to save my life. Literally. Eventually I just left it out there. I was like, well, this isn't working. So I just throw the anchor out again, and it doesn't catch, of course, but I leave it out there and it's just dragging on the bottom. So the whole time this is going on, we are trying to get the boat to crank because I'm sitting there and I'm watching where the wind's blowing us, and there is the most beat up, just the most beat up all metal boat dock I've ever seen in my life. I mean, we're talking angle irons sticking out of it. I mean, it's just in my mind, I just see like, you know, those old movies, like medieval times where they put like the spikes in the ground for the horses to run on, you know, like to fortify a place or something like the big pole spike things, right, that they surround their fort with. That's what, when I see the angle iron sticking out, that's what I'm thinking. And my boat is the horse. You know what I'm saying? So that's all that's playing through my head. I'm like, if we do not do something, this is not going to end well at all. Like, if this motor does not crank, my new boat is about to get just absolutely trashed is what's going to happen. So I'm like starting to panic. I'm like, okay, we got to get this thing going. Like, I'm trying. Every time I try to I reconnect the battery cables, tighten them down, everything cuts on like it should. But every time I go to turn the key, it just will not crank. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this battery must be dead. How is this battery dead? That was what I'm thinking. So I'm out of options. And we're out of options. We can't get it to crank, and we're about to get blown into the side of this dock. And I'm telling y'all, if it was just a little bit of wind and a little wavy, you know, it wouldn't have been a big deal. We could have just, you know, held the boat off the dock, pushed us around to the other side of the dock where we needed to be, and tie off till we could get the situation figured out. But this was not little waves. These were not, you know, it felt like I was back in the bay, like on a very windy day out in the ocean. That's how bad these swells were in this lake, in this particular part of the lake, which blew my freaking mind, to be honest with you. So we get pushing the dock, and I tell my buddy, all right, get ready. We get pushing the dock. We grab the metal dock, and we're pushing the boat. We're pushing the boat away from the dock. Now you have to imagine, we're getting shoved straight into the dock. If we had got pushed to the other side of the dock, we'd been fine because the water would have, you know, kept us away from the dock. But we're literally in the worst possible spot that we could have been on that dock. I mean, it's bad. But anyways, so I'm holding it for a while, and I mean, and when I tell you, it took all my strength to negate what damage I did negate, and I'm pretty sure I threw out both of my shoulders trying to hold the boat off the dock, because that boat is about between 2,000 and 2,500 pounds. And these waves, like I said, were like swells. They were like 2 foot, maybe. I don't know. They felt like 2 foot. It was enough that the first time the boat did hit the dock, it took a big old chip out of the boat, fiberglass. And that's when I knew. We're up, you know where, without a paddle. So, only thing I can do is hold on. That's all we're doing is holding on. I'm just like, oh my gosh, my boat. Like, I'm just holding on for dear life, trying to keep it off. And I mean, the boat hits a couple times, takes a couple chunks out of it, scrapes it, rubs on it. Obviously, it leaves a lot of scuffs, which wasn't the big deal. But the main thing was the fiberglass. It was busting up the fiberglass and cutting into my rub rail, too. My rub rail got all cut up. And then my motor, eventually, one of the waves slams us back, and the back of the motor hits another metal part of the dock, and it gets all scraped up. So at this point, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Because my buddy, I told him to get, luckily, he took one of the bumpers, and which I had two. He took both of them, actually. He held one over, and he got up on the dock and was able to keep. There was a big, massive bolt. I'm talking about this bolt was the biggest bolt I've ever seen in my life, and it was just sticking out there. And it was below the water line, okay? So he drops it down, because if that bolt hits, if that fiberglass runs up on that bolt below the water line, there's no doubt in my mind that bolt's going right through the hole. That's how hard, that's how much force these swells were pushing us up against this dock. I mean, it's hard to believe that can happen on a lake, but I'm telling y'all, it's no joke. And I've been working out. I mean, I'm fairly strong for my size, and I'm telling you, I could not keep it off. It was impossible to keep some of them I was able to keep the boat off, but other ones I couldn't. It was literally impossible. It was one of those situations, if somebody's hand would have got between the boat and the dock, if your arm would have been there, no doubt it would have broke your arm. It maybe even would have cut into your arm. So I don't know how much damage, but that's what I kept imagining. And I was like, just told my friends, like, do not put your hands don't put any body part in between this boat and that dock, because it will cut your finger off for sure. I don't know about your hand, but it definitely damn break it. Anyways, so he puts the bumper down there and manages to keep the boat off the bolt, but it cost me both bumpers. Literally, the first bumper got destroyed in the process, and he gets the second bumper in and is starting to keep it off again. So the only thing I can think to do, and the only thing that we can do, was while he's holding the boat bumper on it, in between the swells, I'm trying to grab and kind of like walk my way up. I'm like grabbing the rails of the dock, right? Because it has like this like waist high like railing system around it. And I'm trying to work the boat, a 2,200 pound boat, basically by myself, because my buddy's on the dock, just trying to like keep the freaking, like watching the boat and trying to keep the bumper, the last bumper we have, in between the boat and the dock. So I'm trying to like walk it up one at a time. And I mean, dude, it's one of the most physical thing, like hard. There was many a time where I was thinking, I may have to just let go. Like, I may have to just jump on this dock, and whatever happens to this boat happens to this boat, because I was giving out that quick. And luckily, after it hits, I don't know how many more times, I was able to get the boat around the side of the dock, but that didn't end our trouble. Because I get around the front side of the dock, but the water and the swells are still pushing us that way. I have to get it on around the other side. So, but the good thing was, once I got it on the front side of the dock, the swells were kind of working in my favor in a sense at that point, because it was just pushing me in the direction I needed to go anyway. And my goal was to get the nose of the boat swung around. Anyway, so the goal was to, my mind's like, all right, look, Nick, we gotta get this boat on around. I gotta get the nose to the other side, and we have to tie off to one of the cleats, and then the back of the boat will hopefully swing around, and then at least the water will be theoretically pushing it away from the dock. Well, we ended up getting it after some time, and after my shoulders are just throbbing, and well, I'm just wore out. We finally get it swung around there, and we get it tied off. But the only problem was, yes, it was pushing it away, but then the back swell coming off the land, like the water coming back to the into the lake, because it was so close to land. So it would push it away, but then some more water would come back and then push it back into the dock. So we ended up having to keep a boat bumper on it at the front to not do any more damage than it already did. But it was better. We were better. That was a better position to be in. So, but even then, if I can't get this boat to crank, I don't know what we're gonna do. We're standing on some stranger's rickety ass dock, metal dock, that looks like it's been there since the first house had been put on Eagle Lake. This may have been the first dock ever built because it was just the craziest. Anyways, so we're standing there. It's not our dock. It's not even technically supposed to be on somebody else's dock, but we were just, what choice did we have, right? So we're standing there, and then some lady starts walking down. And I'm like, okay, all right. Well, hopefully either one of two things are going to happen. Either I'm already having one of the worst days of my life, and she's just going to make it worse and threaten to call the cops or something. And it just wasn't. I was hoping it wasn't a Karen. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, luckily she was very nice. I told her what was going on. I think she could almost see. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried in probably 15 years, I think. But maybe she could see a little bit of a glimmer in my eye. You know what I'm saying? Because I felt like I wanted to cry. I felt like I wanted to cry in that moment. But anyways, so she's very nice, and she's just like, yeah, my husband's not here. I'm like, ma'am, and I'm telling her we are in a bad spot. We need somebody to come help us quick. I'm thinking my battery's dead, so I'm like, do you have another battery that I could borrow? And I promise I will pay you $400. I will wire it to your account for a $100 battery. I don't care. I just need to get this boat out of the situation. And she's like, yeah, I think we do, but I don't know where my husband keeps them. This is a super sweet lady, but she just had no clue where anything was. So I'm like, well, when's he going to be back? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, awesome. We don't know when our rescue's going to be here, basically. That's what I'm thinking. Because I'm just thinking I need a battery. Well, luckily, the guy shows up not too much longer after that. She walks back up to the house, and all we can do is keep it off. And I kept trying to retry the same battery. I'm like, this battery can't be dead. But I never could get it to crank. So I'm like, I guess it is. That's the only thing I can think. So that guy finally shows up, right? And I'm like, great, awesome. He comes down. I explain the situation. I'm like, sir, my boat's fucking jacked. I don't even want to imagine how much it's going to cost to fix damage that's already done. But I tell him the situation. I say, do you have another battery? He looks at me and he's like, yeah, I always keep a spare cranking battery on my boat. Just kind of looking at me like, you don't keep a spare cranking battery on your boat? And he had a good point. And I've learned from that. I've since then that's been taken care of. Once again, I'm an idiot sometimes, and I don't think about these things. But anyways, so we go and get his battery. And it's fully charged. He's like, it's fully charged, no doubt about it. There's nothing wrong with this battery. So I walk it down there, all the way back down there. My buddy's still holding the boat. I hook the boat up. Go to turn it on. My radio and stuff kicks on again. I go to crank the motor. Does the same thing it did with my battery. Same exact thing, right? And I'm just like, at this point, that feeling you get? You just know something's about to work, but it doesn't, and it just deflates everything within you. That was that feeling I had. Just pure defeat. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how I'm going to get this boat. Because we're on a lake, dude. You know what I'm saying? There's no towboat USA. This ain't out in the ocean where you can, spend a ridiculous amount of money for somebody to come help you. There's nobody around to help. I don't know what we're going to do. So I'm like, this can't be happening. I'm like, it's not the battery. It can't be the battery. Because what are the chances that his battery and my battery are both dead? My battery in the boat's literally not even 2 weeks old. His battery, he says he keeps charged all the time, that's a spare battery, and he assures me it's charged. So I'm like, it can't be the battery. So I just keep working with it. I just keep taking the positive negative cables off. I keep putting them back on. The whole time the swells are just ba boom, ba boom. My head's down. My head's down in the freaking battery compartment, and I'm just getting one big wave could just freaking make me lose my balance and throw me over at that. Like, that's how bad the swells were on this lake, which still to this day blows my mind that those swells were that bad in that spot. It's kind of wild, to be honest. But yeah, my head's in there. I'm sitting there trying to fix it. My head's banging around, blah, blah, blah. And I just keep doing the same thing over and over. I keep taking them off, putting them back. I'm just, every time I'm just like, good Lord, please just let this battery crank. If you just let this battery crank, I swear to everything that's good and green on this planet, this boat will not be back in the water before I have a trolling motor on it. It will not be back in the water before a trolling motor gets put on it. I've been putting it off, and this is why this happened. If I would have had a trolling motor like I wanted to have, at the very least, I could have used a trolling motor to hold us in place or get us away from docks and stuff while I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with the main battery. But I didn't, because I'm stupid. And that's kind of the moral of the story here. I'll tell you the moral of the story at the end of this. We're almost there. We're only 23 minutes in. Surely y'all are still there with me, right? You're still listening. I'm not boring. So I keep doing that, right? And eventually, I go to turn it, and this time when I turn it, it doesn't just click and just kill off everything. It tries to turn over for a split second. And I had that moment of hope, and then it dies out. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, okay, I got a little bit of hope now. There's a little bit of glimmer. I don't know what's going on, but something's, you know, there's a possibility that this thing could crank if I just keep messing with it. Do the same thing, mess with the battery cables. The next time I do it, I go to crank it, fires right up like there's absolutely zero issues with it at all. I mean, perfectly cranks, no problems, like it's brand freaking new, just pulled it out of the boat shop, perfectly running. And all I can think was, thank you, Lord, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm just being honest. I really didn't. I had no clue what I was going to do. I'm at a lake. I'm hundreds of miles, however many miles. I'm 3.5 hours away from my home, in a lake I've never been in. I don't know anybody around here. We're staying in a cabin. The owner was nice enough to let us stay there, but they're not there. You know, they just was going to let us stay the weekend, which is super nice of them. So I don't know what I'm going to do, you know. And luckily it cranked, and I ended up telling that guy, I was like, look, I'm going to go put my boat on the trailer, and I will be right back to your house. I got his address, put it in my phone real quick, and go to start undoing the boat. I ended up taking my anchor line off because I forgot about the anchor. The anchor drug probably almost 200 yards. No BS there. The anchor drug almost 200, probably 200 to 250 yards. It just drug. It never grabbed anything. And that's another thing I learned. A fluke anchor, guys, you probably already know this if you're a fisherman or been doing it for any amount of time, or you're a boater, but I'm dumb. And I did kind of know this, but I thought, like, in my stupid head, I was like, surely this anchor out here in the middle of the lake, it's not like there's a lot of current. It's not like an ocean or a bay, and there's probably not going to be that much wind. It can't be that bad, right? Like, that's what I'm thinking when I don't go get the proper anchor, you know, like a mushroom anchor for mud and stuff, like I would have on my bass boat. I'm thinking, like, yeah, the fluke anchor will be fine. You know, no worries. I got a new battery. Like, I'm literally... Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm kind of stupid sometimes. But point is, I didn't have the right anchor, and that's on me. Okay? But I thought with this anchor, it would be okay. I mean, you have to understand, this anchor is so big. I'm 5'6", not the tallest guy in the world. I'm 5'6". When I grab the bottom of this fluke anchor and I toss it over my shoulder, it hangs down to my waist. That's how big this anchor is. Okay, so I just thought, for some reason, me being stupid, I'm like, sure, it'll be fine. You know, it's not like there's going to be 2-foot waves out there on the lake. So yeah, the point of the anchor, that whole rant I just went on there about the anchor, was that the anchor was still in the water. And I just like take the rope off and I tie it around his dock, and I'm like, forget this anchor, you know. I just want to get the boat back to the ramp, I want to get it on the trailer before for some reason this boat cuts off again, because I still don't know what's wrong with it. Like, I still at this point have no clue why it's not. I assume from working on things in the past that in the moment I'm like, it must be a wiring issue. That's the only thing I could come up with, but I didn't really know. So I get it on the trailer and get it out of the water finally, and then that's when I really take stock of the damage. And it was oh man, the damage was, and still is, extensive. I'll put some photos throughout the video, you know, of the damage. I'm not going to go out there and film it because it'll just break my heart again. I'll go out there and just stare at it with a camera. But I'll put the photos that I took for the insurance on the screen. But yeah, a lot of damage. So we look at it and I'm just like, you know, I'm just defeated at that point. And we ended up taking the battery back to the guy. And then I walked down to his dock and I pulled the anchor had like anchor line, and the anchor got wrapped around the dock, and just it was a mess. I had to pull it up and get it out of there. Both my boat bumpers got completely destroyed and lost in the process. But anyways, I ended up getting that guy's number because I have insurance on the boat. Luckily, thank goodness I have insurance on the boat, which I have to have because it's financed. So I got his name and number and where it happened in case the insurance company, you know, wanted to verify my story. Yeah, that's pretty much the story of what happened to my boat. I know I have not done a boat walkthrough video, and I was going to after I got my trolling motor put on, which is on now. I kept my word. That boat didn't go back in the water until I put the trolling motor on it. And I took it to a place to have the damage assessed. I had to have a quote done for the insurance company, and I think the quote was right at, so for the motor covers and then the fiberglass damage and to fix everything properly, just the repair side, I think it was like $7,500 in repairs. Okay, if you have a new boat, or if you have any boat, honestly, and it's a nicer, like a newer boat that you really, if you have a boat, just have insurance on your boat, because you may do something stupid like I did and assume that a massive fluke anchor, or, you know, the boat's going to run properly, because why the hell would it do that, right? You may assume it's going to run properly and it actually doesn't, and then you get blown into a big ass metal dock and there's literally nothing you can do about it. But anyways, yeah, that was the boat price. And then actually, so the problem with it was what went wrong, which they fixed this now too, so that's good. But what went wrong was basically where my kill switch box is that hooks into the battery. The cables that whoever made the boat originally, I guess whoever put in the kill switch, not who made the boat, but whoever put in the kill switch, they didn't use the right size, the right gauge cables. So the guy pretty much told me that it was an eventuality that this was going to happen. Like that basically the cables burn up because there wasn't, from what he told me, that they weren't large enough to hold the charge, I guess, of the, you know, the charge from the battery to the motor. And they just burn up, and they were like all corroded and rusty, and not rusty, but like corroded and like falling apart. And so every time I tried to crank it, it wasn't allowing enough voltage to get to the motor to actually start it. So that's why every time I tried it, I just got lucky. Like at the boat ramp, I happened to get lucky when I turned it to get it off the trailer that time. After the first time it messed up, when I was trying to get off my trailer, it just happened to crank. So I thought it was good. I was like, oh, okay, it was just, you know, short. Like my connectors weren't connected good to the battery or something. That's what I thought it was. No, it wasn't. It was actually it was a disaster waiting to happen is what it was. It was just a complete mess up, just screw up, just waiting to happen. So that's what the problem was. So he fixed that for me. I got that taken care of. And then also while it was down there, waiting to be looked at for the fiberglass, because apparently it takes a long time to get a quote on fiberglass. But anyways, I bought a trolling motor, Minn Kota Riptide, I think 80-pound thrust with a remote iPilot, all that good stuff. So I bought that, ended up having to buy, you know, batteries for it, basically the whole works, and I got them to hook it up for me and rig it up for me. So now that's on there, so I hopefully will never have that problem again. And yeah, it just sucked. It just really, really sucked, man. It was not it's one of those things though, it's one of those kind of like like paying for your education kind of thing, you know, because like I said, I knew, I don't even want to say I knew because I was being lazy, I guess. Like I know that a fluke anchor is not designed for a muddy bottom. That's why, you know, I always have so much trouble in the bay where it's muddy and silty. down there in Ocean Springs of the anchor pulling because of just the type of bottom that it is. And I know there's different types of anchors for different types of bottoms, but I just thought for some reason, I don't know, I was just being stupid, and I just should have went with what I knew to be right and just got the proper anchor for the boat. And I don't think I would have had that much trouble. I think a mushroom anchor or something like that for a muddy lake bottom would have probably held us in place, even with the wind and the water being so bad. It was bad. It was rough. It was really, really rough for a lake. But yeah, like I was saying, I think that's just one of those things. Like, I paid for my education there. Unfortunately, the insurance is paying a lot. I still got my deductible, but the insurance is definitely paying for it. So, but I learned a very valuable lesson, and that lesson is, if you have a smaller boat and it can hold a trolling motor, just go ahead and get your trolling motor. Honestly, like, even if it doesn't have to be a super expensive trolling motor, just something that you have connected to batteries that are separate from your main cranking battery, in case something like that ever happens, and then at least you have control over the vessel. Also, use the proper anchor for wherever you're going to be at, which seems super freaking... I feel so dumb for even having to say this, because it seems so obvious to me. Like, yeah, dumb, use the proper anchor for the right thing, but that's just... I say that, this is stuff that, it's very... You could overlook it easily. You could just assume, like, oh, this anchor will be fine. Like, especially if you don't know a lot about boating. But I've looked into it enough that I should have known, and I just made a bad decision and didn't have the right anchor on the boat for that task. Also, and like me, I'm gonna have another cranking battery. I'm going to get another battery mount, and I'm going to buy another battery, and I'm going to put it on the opposite side of the kill switch from my main cranking battery. So if that cranking battery ever dies, I have that other one to hook up to if I ever need to. The problem with it all is it just costs money. If I just had an infinite amount of money and I could have just done I would have already had all that done. But it boiled down to, like, okay, a freaking trolling motor, the one that I want, that I really need, especially for out there in the ocean and stuff, is the trolling motor's $2,300. That's just for the motor. Is it going to be, if you pay somebody to do it and they do it right, by the time you buy the batteries and you buy the charger and you buy just everything, and then you pay for labor for them to mount it, you're running another $1,500 to $2,000. So it's just a very big expense, but I should have just went ahead and pulled the trigger on it and did it when I first got the boat, because I knew I wanted to do it eventually. And if I would have had the trolling motor, none of it would have happened. I wouldn't have caused $7,500 worth of damage to my brand new boat that's literally like a three-year-old boat, which is absolutely ridiculous. I still feel dumb about it. But anyways, that's the story, guys. That's what happened with the boat, and that's also why I have not made a boat walkthrough video, because I kind of would like it to look how it looked when I bought it, like how it looks, fairly new. And that's when I was wanting to do a walkthrough video on it and show you guys, what all that particular boat offers, what it has. I've enjoyed the heck out of the boat. I really don't have many complaints about the boat, except for obviously the issue with the improper size cable, which kind of made me run into a metal dock. But hey, you live and you learn. It is what it is. And hopefully if somebody watches this video, here's a story, they'll take that into account, so this doesn't happen to somebody else. Because honestly, and another thing too is, honestly, you need to have backups on boats, especially like me. I take my fiance on there, and my daughter especially. So if my daughter's on that boat, you need to have plans, because if something inevitably will go wrong probably, and when it does, you need to know what you're going to do to resolve the problem. So that's why I said I was going to get the trolling motor before I ever put it back on the water. And I'm just thankful, honestly, that my daughter and my fiance wasn't on the boat, because that would have made things so much worse. Like, that would have been awful, trying to worry about their safety and then also dealing with the boat and everything else. Because I'm telling y'all, if I'd have just let that boat go, if I'd have took my hands off of it and just let it ride out, and it was going to be what it's going to be, it would not shock me if that boat got sunk right there at that dock. It would not have shocked me. Because like I said, there was these pieces of angle sticking out, and they were under the water line, one. Two, the swells are so bad and so big. The swells are big enough that if the top of the boat would have caught somewhere just right, the swells were big enough to, like, it potentially could have rolled that boat over. Potentially. Maybe not, but it would have been, it was bad enough that it made me think of that being a possibility. So that's all I'm saying. And then right past the dock, on the other side of the metal dock, was an older metal dock, but it wasn't a dock anymore. You understand? It was just the metal legs coming out of the ground and the wood that are like spikes, right? So if we wouldn't have been able to get it tied off on that next dock, that boat would have got pushed right into that. And no telling what kind of damage it would have done to the bottom side of the boat. And like I said, once you punch a hole through the boat, that's going to be it. That pump's only going to pump out so much water, you know? So it was just a very rough experience. And like I said before, I'm just doing this because I hope that if someone else is kind of newer to boating, like me, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm brand new. I've had a bass boat. I've had a couple different bass boats, but like buying a big center console like the one that I got, which for me, a 22 foot, that's the biggest boat I've ever owned, nicest boat I've ever owned. And there's just a lot of, you know, you get into a new hobby, a new thing, and there's a lot of things you don't really think about until you actually get into it. You know, you don't realize a lot of things until you start doing stuff. So I guess my point here is that, like I said, if you're looking into getting a boat, looking into boating, things like that, hopefully this story will, you know, prevent someone from making the same mistake I did, which is not having the proper equipment for whatever it is you're doing. And that's pretty much the bottom line. I'm not saying you have to have a trolling motor. I would recommend getting a trolling motor. I'm not saying you have to have a spare battery, cranking battery, but I would highly recommend having a spare cranking battery. No, I am saying the one thing that I will say is if you're going to a lake or a river or a pond or a creek or a ocean or a bay or wherever you're going, understand what kind of bottom you're dealing with and I will say this to me is not an option, have the proper anchor, okay? Have the proper anchor to set anchor, the proper size and the proper type, depending on the bottom of the water you're going to be in, because that also would have probably saved me a lot of headache. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for me. Hope you enjoyed the story. If you hung in there with me this long, I really appreciate it, because I know the story kind of dragged on longer than it probably should have. But yeah, thanks for making it this far. And if you enjoy this, check out some of my other content. I'm going to be trying to do more fishing and boating kind of lifestyle sort of content on my channel. If you enjoy those kind of things, hit that subscribe button. If you think this video may help somebody else, or it helped you, or made you think about something you possibly didn't think about before watching it, smash that like button for me. It helps me get the video out to other people. And yeah, guys, that's going to be it for me. I'll see you guys on the next one.